And number 2 arrives at noon tomorrow, sweetie? Is that the schedule time, I think?
Yep.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's say hello to whoever's behind the hand.
All right. I think it's Miss Celinda, 541. You're on the air. Let's see if we can get you. Yesterday, we turned on your microphone and said hello, hello, and we didn't get you. So I don't know if this is a Blog Talk issue. Hopefully you're there.
Oh, I'm here. That was, and I all of a sudden got indisposed and could not get back to the phone till later. By then, I think you were talking to Susan or something, and so I waited because I wanted to hear the dialogue between you all, or among you all, or whatever. A couple
so how do you be?
I am fine. I'm in the middle of a challenging situation that I'm not ready to share. Larry and I, so we're just practicing to the best of our individual abilities to be in a proactive, positive state all the way through it, in a loving state.
Well, extending love to both of you in support. That was a powerful worksheet you did the other day, and probably open some things up for the next layer to clear out, would be my suspicion.
Oh, yes. There's a lot more, and I would love to do a worksheet with Larissa, being in the number 1 position. I have a couple of comments I would love to make about what was said yesterday that I appreciated when you were talking about the Ayurvedic medicine and what you experienced in India, and your perspective about the Middle East being the answer coming from the Middle East in Yeshua's work. And I concur with that totally, because I've also explored in my own way the different sources, and I highly respect every one of them. Gangaji and the Hindu tradition and the yogic tradition, because of my yogic training, although I never got into the Hindu religion. The yoga is very much a gift from that culture. And also my Christianity and my looking into Buddhism, and especially Pema Chodron and people like that. And I keep coming back to Yeshua. They never quite fit. Those others never quite fit. And I remember
nobody does it better.
I remember in high school reading Hudson's book. It was part of the literature class, I think, East Meets West or something like that, Ne'er the Twain Shall Meet. I don't remember the title of the book, where he talked about this British friend and this Hindu friend and how they just couldn't surmount the cultural differences. And I thought, the Middle East is East meeting West. The Middle East contains both within itself. And I have an inner Middle East that is very often in turmoil. And so I really resonate with the Middle East. And that's why I'm so happy to be in this path of this and that. And I really resonate with the Middle East as being the melting pot between the two different perspectives on life. It includes both. And I just really appreciate that.
Cool.
And
awesome. Well, we'll hold the space for you and whatever's happening with Larry. Go ahead.
And then I had a long time ago in the 1978 or 9, when I took Jesus off the cross, you know, the Way of Mastery says it very beautifully. He chose. He was not a victim. He chose.
Absolutely.
He was working through his own stuff, like you mentioned, in the garden when it looked like he sweat blood. He was working off his own issues, ancestral and personal, any that were left, so he could be the vessel of complete love. And he says so often, my cross is not your cross. You know, stop hanging yourself on my cross. It's not yours.
Pick up your own cross.
Creation. Yeah, exactly. and support the other, like the gentleman that stepped out of the crowd and carried Jesus's cross for him for quite a ways. You know, support each other, but don't take it on. And that's been very, very helpful for me. So another reason why I keep hanging around the Aramaic gospel approach. And what was the thing you said about the difference between mimosa and, was it orita, or the law of?
Well, mimosa is a champagne drink.
Yeah. Oh, what's the law? Okay. What is the?
It was actually, they asked him. They said, "What is most important in the mimosa?"
Mimosa.
Which in Aramaic would be, starts with an N, and in Aramaic it would be the customs of the people. You know, what do we do as a culture? And he did not reply. The most important law in the mimosa is, he said, the most important in the orita, and the difference would be, orita comes from the actuality. It's cause law. Mimosa would be, actually the word law doesn't apply at all. It's the customs of the people. What do we as a culture do? And that cultural divide, of course, there are many things that one culture would say, no, that's against the law, but because they have this belief that the law is a rule of some superior, they're not allowed to break, rather than the word in Aramaic, law is just, here's the way things work and what's most important. Well, first order of business is, there's a gateway in your mind called Rahma. You got to keep it open, and then you get to have a human life. If you don't have that, you don't got nothing.
There you
go.
go.
Turn a phrase. And so that becomes the first order of business, and then, you know, the rest follows. And actually, I love the phrase that follows that. I actually started to write a book on it, and the book's title's changed, and I'm still working on it, but was the 11 most important words ever spoken, or maybe it's 10. And that was, after he says, the most important thing in the Orita is have Rahma. When you think of the Creator, when you think of neighbor, in order to maintain self, now you've got your human life, you've got a mind of love, and then he says, for upon this hangs the law and all its prophets. In other words, if you don't have that, you can't look at that book and make any sense of it. You'll have 32,000 sects of people who say, we are Christianity, because none of them have followed the first law, or the conflicted ones. Where there's a conflict, it's because the reading of that text hangs upon reading from your being, your mind of being, rather than from your carbon-based memory. You know, if you hand the scriptures to somebody that has unresolved rage in them, you'll have a rage-filled religion out of it. If you have someone who's filled with guilt, unresolved guilt, you'll find, oh, our religion is a guilt-based religion. If you have someone that's terror, our religion is a terror-based religion. Whoever starts it, what they haven't resolved, reads what's in their minds into what they call their scriptures. And it's not until we open that gate, experience ourselves as love, actually think with the mind of love, that carbon-based memory is cleaned up, and then you open the book and go, oh, that's what it says.
That's really sweet. Thank you for that. And so where do the rules of man fall under, or how would that be defined in Aramaic? Does that come under the Mimosa?
As Satan? Well, that would be the customs of the people, Mimosa, yes.
Yeah. And is that Mimosa?
But you listen to... You listen to the point where Yeshua is getting ready to, there's a bit of a delay there. I'll finish my thought and then turn it over to you. So Yeshua's heading out of the Garden of Gethsemane, meets the high priest servant. Peter's got a sword out. He's already whacked his ear off, and he's ready for a fight. He's going to fight for and save his master from his terrible fate. And Yeshua calls him for that action, calls him Satan. And then he says what he's doing for you think in the mind of man. You're thinking out of carbon-based memory with your unresolved issues rather than attuning to the plan of God, which would be living from the mind of love that reads all things in the energy field correctly.
So an extension of that might be, so Satan is really operating from the mimosa rather than the orita.
Well, Satan in Aramaic is not a personality or a person, nothing to do with a person. It's the resistor, one who misleads. I would offer that anything in the rules of men that are engaged in hostility or fear, an example would be, so we have a law that says, thou shalt not kill. And that one is part of the actuality. That would be from the orita.
Right.
And so then what does Mimosa come along and do? It says, and if you kill, then we'll have the right to kill you. Now we're into carbon-based memory. Now we're into the resistor, one who misleads. Now we're into punishment and fear. We've got a whole different game going on. You know, the how many preachers have you heard tell you, even though when we finished yesterday's session with this quote from Timothy, 2 Timothy 1:7, for the Creator hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And how many have heard preachers screaming and raging about how fear of God is the beginning of wisdom? And you know you've gone from the orita to the mimosa, the customs of men. And so what do the customs of men do? They usually include, are based in fear and condemnation.
And punishment.
And punishment, yeah, part of the game. Yep.
So Nemosa, Michael, is N-E-M-O-S-A?
N-A-M-O-S-A, Nemosa.
And Orita is O-R-I-T-A?
I-T-A, yeah.
Okay, I'm very visual, so
the
I like
Orita.
to have a picture of the word in my mind. Yeah, perfect.
That's it.
So I can find it in my dictionary. Yeah, beautiful. But anyway, I would love to do a quick, just fill in maybe the front parts of the upper parts of a worksheet on how Larissa would view me. And we'll see where that goes, if that's as her mother.
Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by how Larissa would view you.
Well, doing a worksheet with her in A1 and me in A3. AC.
So you're going to do a worksheet as though you were Larissa.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, doing it on you. Okay, got it.
Right.
So what emotion is going on for Larissa in this circumstance that you, in your mind, this reality you have in your mind?
I've got, I'd have to guess because the outcome was her just cutting me off.
Well, if you were doing what she's doing, what would the emotion be?
I just want to live my own life. I would.
No, that's a thought. That's a thought. Whoa. That's a thought.
Yeah.
What we're talking about here now is what's the emotion?
Smothered.
So if you were doing what Larissa is doing, cutting you off, it would be because you feel smothered.
Right.
Do you suppose that's accurate about Larissa?
About my mom. Pardon?
Exactly what you felt about your mom. So probably it's a projection. So what I'd suggest you do is you do that worksheet first on your mom, where you're feeling smothered. Clean that out, and you might have a much different reality about Larissa. So I'd suggest that you let the worksheet, set the worksheet aside for Larissa, start a second one where your number 1A and number 1B is smothered, and number 1C is your mom. And as you do that, what happens with your breath?
Well, that's a lung issue. I hold my breath. I don't get any air. I don't have any space. I don't have any me.
I'd be writing all this down.
Me, my core me is a big open.
Are you writing those thoughts down?
I'm trying to. It's a zero. A clear zero.
So, what's the thought behind the emotion smothered? Is the thought that you've been made a clear zero? I mean, it sounds like you've been annihilated.
Yeah, I'm a puppet, or I'm basically her puppet or annihilated. Yeah. I'm either her slave or her, it's just, I don't even know how to put it in words. It's like I have no being of my own. I'm an extension.
So draw the drawing.
Okay, here I am. I got a little head, I got arms, I got legs, and I'm just this big zero in my core being. That's not fat. That's empty space.
So just take a minute to breathe on that and feel that. Does that energy come in to what's going on between you and Larry?
It was, and we just had a big argument the other day, and it came out of my mouth. I acknowledged two places where we both were perfect bags of garbage.
Matching bags, yeah.
Matching bags of garbage. And he just was silent. And it's like right after that, the argument ended. I don't feel that way now. I feel totally different now. I have gradually been taking my power back that I gave to him as a power person. Yeah, and I think, and eating my hands off. Which is what you really
wanted to do or need to do with your mom, right?
Right, exactly, because she's primary. And then after that, I had two dreams, one back to back with the other one. And these were all these men in my life, my lovers, my husbands, and my wannabe lovers that I never got into a relationship with because of my commitment to my marriage, and just one there, my first marriage. And then I had them, and there were women too. They were all these power people. And I was very aware. My father was in there as my power person, my loving power person. My stepdad was my loving sugar daddy power person. My first husband was, and then all the negative ones, and women too. And then when I woke up to go to the bathroom, I think, and I said, oh, those are all of my different projections of power people and other people, important people in my life. And the second one was, I dreamt, it was very quick, it was right before I woke up, and there was this woman, I don't remember her relationship to me, but she says, give me access to your account and I'll keep you safe. And it was my savings account with all its money in it and stuff. And then this power person over here can't get a hold of it and deny you your money. And so I did that. And then all of a sudden in the dream I went, oh my God, what have I done? And I ran off to the teller at the bank to change it back to what it was. And I woke up and I said, that's me going my own way. That's the woman stealing my own bank account by insisting on my right to be right, or my insistence on being right, my insistence on having my own way. my
insistence. Did that come into the argument with Larry?
Support. No, it was my revelation for me that he saw me that way, yes, and that way he sees me as trying to control him, and I saw him as trying to control me. And I just went,
how cool.
I know. I just wait a minute, Celinda, give up trying to be the fixer of Larry's life and start looking at your own, which I've been doing, but this was a big visceral hit, Michael, for me.
Got it.
And
well, you'd reached the level of vitality where you were ready for one of those.
Right. And for the first time, I'm really listening to him instead of saying, no, that's not true about me. I'm saying, oh, my God, you are my...
So my suggestion at this point, aside from re-listening to all of this and breathing while you're doing it, would be that you get out the responsibility communication worksheet. And around that issue that you had with Larry, you do a responsibility communication with him.
I think I've already done it verbally, but I'll be glad to go back and do it again.
Cool. Holding the space for it.
And seeing if he will be responsive to it too, because this is 39 years of habit patterns between us, dear heart.
If you take responsibility, like actually on an energetic level, take responsibility for your realities, he will change. I promise you. If you continue the projection via the matching bags of garbage, chances are there will never be a change.
And the thing of it is what would be the most helpful for me is to stop identifying with outcome.
That's engaged. That the way to disengage from that one is to cancel the goal. Remember.
Right. Exactly.
The Eastern mythologies or stories talk about not being attached to the outcome. And that's about halfway there. But actually canceling the goal for the outcome is where the perception collapses. I can let go of my attachment to an outcome and maintain my perceptual construct forever. But if I cancel the goal that drives this perceptual construct, then this pain construct collapses into its root, and I get to see what's going on inside of me.
So I would worksheet around my relationship with Larry would be in order.
2,000%.
Would that be primary?
You can never predict. Remember, what we're dealing with is the unconscious. And so, you look at the scriptures and say, who could ever figure that thing out? They use the word wicked. It's really not, there's nothing wicked about it. It's just whatever's there is there, but there's no figuring it out. Remember, in the codependence intensive, the number one pseudo-solution of the non-being mind is if I could just figure this out. And you can spend a billion years trying to figure something like that out, and you won't figure it out, but you can always forgive it.
Right.
And I suspect if you do that responsibility communication, remember the latest one from the codependence intensive we did is a 3-pager. You'll remember when Magda did her work in that, how monumentally that changed, how she shifted everything. That was like a major piece of work for everybody, including me.
I don't remember getting the 3-pager. Do we have it is there a link in that intensive somewhere?
Yeah, it'll be in with your intensive. Or ask Jeannie. Jeannie will be able to tell you better than I where it is.
Okay. Maybe she can text me that.
Are you there, Jeannie?
I am, and it is in the list. I'll have to open the spreadsheet up and see where it was, but everybody got a spreadsheet of all of the links and all of the worksheets, so I'll have to look and see exactly where that is.
Yeah, and I'll have to make sure that I captured that link that spreadsheet link in my intensive emails that you sent me, because I've kept that folder. Okay. Okay, because I've only got the one page that you have on the website.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So it feels to me like if it goes up the ancestral line and down the ancestral line, that really what's right in front of me and Larry are us, and I can only take care of my end of it. So that would be Larry. I wonder if he would be the primary worksheet.
Well, there are actually two things you can do. It isn't just that you can take care of your end of it, and you can be the space for him to take care of his end of it.
Right. And that would be the responsibility.
You can't be that space until you do your work around it.
Right.
Once you've done your work around it, then you can be that space.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Nice. I appreciate your willingness.
In that light, I would like to do Larry first. Yeah.
So you started one on Larissa. You've started one on Mom. You want to start one on Larry?
Yep. Go ahead with Mom. For me, I'm trying to disengage my power person projection on Larry. If I do that, then it would seem to me that Mom would be next. And if I do that, it would seem to me, this is how my mind works, and I could be mistaken, that Larissa would be the one after that. I have no issues with
Probably.
That. Yeah.
That would probably be accurate, except that probably somewhere in there is going to be the worksheets on yourself, where you wrote number 1A and number 1C.
The Cindy and the Celinda, you mean, or what?
Or the Celinda and the Celinda. It might be Celinda and number 1C Celinda and what happened last week.
Oh, gotcha. Otherwise, it's Cindy in there.
May well be some in there for Cindy, too. Yes.
Yeah, Cindy in there and the first, and me in there, and she. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is really nice.
Go ahead.
This is really nice because this empty space is still, it's all the power person, except that I would be feeling the power person, the empty space, and Larry would be my power person projection. And
you're probably his.
Now, but I need to clean it up anyway.
I say, and you're probably his. Remember, this is the single dynamic that runs the world. Until person dynamic. It runs generation upon generation upon generation upon generation.
And
so somebody interrupts the chain.
Larry still thinks that I am blaming my generations for my situations. And I said, no, that's just what's in my genetic core base. I am 100% responsible what happens to me, or how I see life, or any other thing that I put in there that I have cause for. Yeah.
And he may be giving you a very valuable piece of feedback, because in your power person dynamic, thinking back to and what you said about this worksheet with Mom, in your power person dynamic is blame. So that may be a powerful piece of feedback that in a subtle way that may be accurate. And if so, then a worksheet on your generations or on yourself, blaming, would be appropriate.
So blame is in what? The emotion?
Well, no, blame would be a thought.
Okay.
I'm blaming someone, and so I could be sad because I'm blaming someone. I could be angry, I could be hurt. All kinds of different, could be any variation on a theme. So blame would be in the thought category behind the emotion.
My mother is to blame for my being smothered.
There you go. So that would be number 1D.
Well, if I'm doing it on myself, am I the one to blame then? Is that blame?
Well, if you're doing it on whatever's true in the worksheet that you're doing on yourself, but we had said we were going to continue to do the one on Mom.
Okay, I've got it. My mother is to blame for my smothering. I love that. That's what Louise Hay says has for asthma, is being smothered with with the mother and the smother.
So what's your punishment toward Mom?
I'm going to...
oh, my God, how shocking. I want to go live with my dad. I want to leave. What was that Larissa wants to do? What's that Larissa doing?
Larissa says, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I left in my mind. My mother used to say that when she was berating me, she didn't say berating, of course. When she was correcting me or scolding me, that my shades would go down over my eyeballs. I'd be looking at her, but my shades would go down, or I wouldn't even be looking at her. Yeah. I want to leave.
You would disappear. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Breathe into that one. Yeah, good one. That's the one that's probably going to open your lungs.
Right. Lung issues are big for me. I had quite a challenge when it was so smoky here because of the fires. But I persevered. Right. Persevered. I persevered. I love that Freudian. I persevered, and I did it my way, and my way worked. I wasn't going to go to the hospital. I wasn't going to go to the clinic and get drugs. I just breathed to the best of my ability, and it worked. It worked. I was not in danger or anything. I just took care of myself.
So in the situation with Mom that you're working on, and the punishment was to leave, abandon, disappear, what was the punishment, or was there a punishment towards self?
Oh, yes, definitely. I'm just not sure which one it was, self-blame, or whether it was I abandoned myself. I blamed my, the little kid's going to blame itself, right?
So jot that into number 1E.
Self-blame.
So there's probably some validity in Larry's feedback to you on the blame thing.
Yeah.
And, receiving that responsibly might be a powerful space to be in. Being able to just hear that, just be with him and question, on more than one occasion, you've told me about how I blame, whether it's blaming you or my mother or my genes, whatever it is, my generations. And what I'd like to do, and I'm going to sit here with my notebook and I'm going to make notes, I'd like to hear what you see there. Now, what he sees might be total projection. And it might just be the matching bags of garbage that will give you the feedback that opens that whole space for you to clean that one up.
Okay. I think I wouldn't do the responsibility communication before because I was coming from fear.
Yeah. That's the main thing that keeps it in place. The power person.
Yeah, he's a very powerful person, and we've had some heavy-duty arguments, and our commitment to each other is amazing, considering the discord that has been in our lives. To be together for 39 years, I give both of us a lot of credit for that.
That's awesome, and I'd support you in maybe having another conversation with him where you take responsibility for your part in those heavy-duty arguments that have occurred.
Oh,
and
I definitely have.
Just open the space for that one to be breathed off.
Yeah, I have.
And you'll find that you reach a whole new level of sweetness with your relationship with him.
I am reaching a whole new level. You know,
That's awesome.
I'm sitting in my own pot here and leaving him with his own kettle. Or vice versa.
Well, and remember that you have the power to step out of the pot and just be the space of love, which will be what assists him, and if he's ready to do it, in stepping out of the kettle.
Yep, that's where I'm
that's
at.
Right now. That line in the worksheet that says, "When I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone."
Right.
Literally, if I keep making the choice to bring the active presence of love forward, because, like the two tuning forks, if I had a middle C tuning fork on a desk and I put it in front of a second middle C tuning fork, that second middle C tuning fork's got no choice. It's got to resonate. It's going to start to move. If I truly am connected to the state of being and I stay committed to that and I stay in that space, it can't help but move that in him. Because the truth about him is that's who he is as well.
If he should come in, and he might at any time, because I think he's finished with his work, I will have to cease the conversation because he does feel threatened, if I talk about this to anyone else. So, I mean, that's my perception, and I could be totally wrong about that, because he's pretty committed to allowing me my space about my spiritual growth. It's only when he feels like I am trying to tell him how to be, which could very well be the truth. I've told him this many times. I don't feel that way, but I could be totally wrong. So I don't mind.
Well, it sounds like his power person dynamic involved being controlled, and so that's probably where his terror is. Yeah,
it's no different than mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just comes out in a different way. He chose the power route. I chose the powerlessness route. That's the only difference. So we're matching bags of garbage for that, too.
Perfect. What a gift.
I know. Aren't we a gift to each other?
That's the game. That's it. Yes.
In fact, I told him yesterday he was the perfect teacher for me, even if I disagreed with him. The one thing I know is we are the perfect teachers for each other. And I didn't get any blowback from that either.
No. You got to keep your head attached, eh? That's always nice.
Yeah. I know. And he, too, he's only trying to keep his head attached because he sees me as a threat. When we get in an argument, no different. And I told him that also about a defense and attack and defense. What's the difference between them? They're totally the same. And each one is justified.
So ready to go to step 2 and step into the willingness? I'm willing to go through the physical, mental, emotional symptoms of healing.
Yes. I am.
And what's the specific goal?
About this,
please?
Before we go into the goal. I have spent my whole life, and Larry has complained about this, I have spent my whole life focusing on what's wrong about me and what's wrong about life. And he says, why do you do that?
Because it's your power person dynamic.
Yeah. And like even health and everything. And the other day I thought, this food that I can't have this and I can't have that. Within the last month or so, I thought, this is bullshit. This food was given to me by Creator. So what is it in me? And that's when I run for Louise Hay and say, okay, what's the issue that's causing my inflammation here? That is myself. That I'm stirring my own co-creative pot in a negative way, and I don't want to change. It's a big, what am I going to call it? Ball of wax or tangled yarn ball or whatever. It's all one thing.
Well, in the scriptures, they described it as, who can know the unconscious? Who can know? And they called it the heart. For it is filled with wickedness. That's what they called it. Now, of course, wickedness becomes another fear one rather than, oh, I got all this jumbled mess in me that I'm going to clean up. But
all
that's
this
the word that was
resistance.
used in the scriptures for it, yeah.
Right. All this resistance and all this denial and all of this pain and all, all the whole ball of wax or whatever it's called. Okay, we're on to.
Well, before we go to 3, the goal, just to reiterate, the power person dynamic is what runs the life of every person in the world until they recognize and heal that power person dynamic. So notice we started out with the worksheet on Larissa, that turned to Mom, that turned to Sal, that turned to Larry. It runs the world. It's been running your mind.
Runs the world.
And this is how you undo it. Yeah.
The world. And it runs the world.
Yeah. And this might be a perfect place to go back. You've got video links not only to the individual codependence to interdependence communication practicum that you did, to the second one as well. So you've got almost 90 hours of video, and I would suggest that you start going back over the whole thing. And with this in mind, and at least in my perception, your level of willingness is 10,000 times greater than it was before just the last 2 weeks or so. It'll just open up a whole different world for you. So I should suggest going back to day 1, get your latest personal code evaluation out, watch the 2 personal code evaluation videos, get your assignments down pat from your latest one, and then start through that whole 90-hour process again.
So I get my last PC out,
Personal code evaluation, the recent one you did.
Okay.
There were 2 videos in the email with the feedback that Jeannie gave you on that. There were 2 video links that explain it. I'd listen to it again, and the personal code will open up and take on a whole new meaning for you in terms of how it relates to your work with this level of willingness. And then once you've looked at your number 1, 2, and 3 assignments, or I don't remember, you might have had 4, get really clear on what those specific tools are that you're going to use to deal with those throughout going through that 90-hour video. Have that in front of you and rock through the whole course again, and it'll be a whole different game. And by the way, anybody that's listening, if you're ready to do that, that course is available to do as a self-study. So in the situation with Mom and feeling, thinking, punishing, all of those things in mind, what's the specific goal you had for her?
To let me live
and be
with my
really
dad.
specific.
To let me live with my dad. That was my goal.
Okay.
Or
so question.
Or to stop smothering me so I can breathe. Either one of those would work. Because
Well, of course, if you ask someone to stop smothering you, then you just sent an energetic invitation out into the world for someone to come and smother you.
That's right. Okay, so how do we
remember when we ask for what we don't want, we get it.
That's
energetically,
right.
it's going to come to us. So what was it that you wanted from her? Always make sure when you're doing a worksheet, step 3, you're looking at what you really, the constructive outcome that you want. So specifically in what you've processed so far today, what's the specific outcome? If Mom were here right now, and you had all of this in mind, this smothered, this self-deprecation, all of this, what would, if you could, looking at the whole circumstance right now, and it were current, if you could give Mom a specific instruction as to what would be your ideal outcome, what would it be?
To accept me as I am and let me be me.
There you go. Okay, perfect. And it would it be accept or maybe acknowledge? Because it sounds like the issue going on to some degree with Larry is acknowledgement.
Very definitely. Like even acknowledging my attempts to change when it's so hard, like for interrupting.
Yeah.
You know, just acknowledging, just to, like, I'll stop when I interrupt him, but he'll go on and say, because it's a reactive pattern, it's already out of his mouth, stop interrupting me, or he'll say, you're interrupting me, or he'll just stop talking, like, okay, I'm going to shut up because you're interrupting me. Yeah, to acknowledge me.
And so notice how often he asks for exactly what he wants, to be interrupted. So that's probably a core piece in his power person dynamic.
Well, he's a mechanic. He deals with like 0 tolerances or very tiny tolerances. And so that's the way he sees life, you know. Just get over it, you know, just do it. Acknowledge me. And I can see why
he's a really great apology.
To acknowledge me and what was the rest that I said? To acknowledge me and let me be me. Was that what I said?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And of course, our magic word here, Michael, is so I can be safe.
That old safety issue, yeah, it's a big one.
Mm-hmm. Safety and trust.
That's really at the core of most of it.
Biggie. Yeah, safety and trust. Okay, and I'm going to breathe.
And I would suggest doing a worksheet where safety is the goal and a separate worksheet where trust is the goal. Because they're two different things. It'll relate to content in 2 different files in your mind. And it will bring 2 different levels or types of healing.
And you know what's funny is I don't really know why I'm doing this worksheet, because when I made the 12-step amends to her when she was dying in the hospital, and my stepdad called in tears, I remember it so well, because he said, would you please come be with your mom? She's dying. So I went. It was such a blessed choice, because when I got on the plane, I talked to this psychologist who worked with seriously psychotic people and dangerous mentally ill people, and he was talking about the portals during the day of dawn and dusk, and how he'd had personal experiences of having like these openings between the spirit world and the physical world, and these portals, and he just left me with this one quote that I love, that was inch by inch life's a cinch, and yard by yard life is hard, and mile by mile life is fire. And it's taken me all this time to understand what that meant.
Yeah. Powerful gift.
Yeah, and then I get to my mother's, and I get in, my stepdad comes up to me and he says, I'm really embarrassed. Your mother did a miraculous turnaround.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And then I made the 12-step amends, and basically what I said to her, I forgive you. You know, I forgive you for any harm I did to you, or any, I can't remember the exact 12-step words,
right,
that I did to you, and real or imagined, and I forgive I love you. How does it go? I forgive you for any issues I had against you, real or imagined. You know, any problems between us, real or imagined. And I forgive you for any issues that I think you did to me, any harm I think you did to me, real or imagined. And so I just, you know, did it both ways. I don't know how to explain that, but I did it both ways, from my end to her and from her end to me, and it changed our relationship. Now, I live in Hawaii, she lived in Las Vegas, so I have no way of knowing if we'd been in close proximity, if it would continue. But she wrote me a letter after I got back, and she says, don't bother to come to my funeral. You came when I needed you.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What a nice acknowledgement, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's really,
and you started out...
I'm just cleaning up the stuff that's still in my body cells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you started out this piece of the worksheet, or the whole conversation, with, I don't know why I'm doing this worksheet, because I already forgave her. So remember, never, ever, ever forgive anyone for anything.
Right.
The reason you're doing this worksheet is because you effectively pardoned her. You let her off the hook for the pain that was inside of you that you were experiencing.
And
when we do that, listen, when we do that, we substituted forgiveness with pardoning. And we think we've forgiven, which means we don't go to the next step of actually removing what's in us, taking responsibility for and removing what's in us. That's why you're doing this worksheet now, because you did no forgiveness work with her. You did some powerful, effective pardoning, and that's a wonderful thing to do. But when you realize that what you're doing when you say, I forgive you, will you forgive me, what you're doing is pardoning and inviting pardon, and then you know enough to do the next step of removing the underlying trauma. The reason you're doing this worksheet is because you have not yet forgiven as to your mother. And the reason it's still playing out with your daughter is because you've not yet forgiven as to your mother. Remember, in Aramaic, every time that the Aramaic scriptures are interpreted by the Greeks, say something like, forgive your brother, 2 words missing. And the 2 words are, forgive as to your brother. So it's not about forgiving your brother or your mother or yourself. You forgive as to what that person has brought up in you. So if you and I interact and you bring up this feeling of being smothered in me, I need to remove smothered from my physiology, or I'm going to be smothered for eternity. Forgiveness is about me removing smothered from me, not letting you off the hook because you were part and parcel of my experience of that. There's a big difference between forgiving and pardoning.
I think that's one reason why I moved on from the 12-step program. Yeah.
Well, it's powerful. I mean, it's more than what most of the world's got. It's awesome and powerful.
Right.
And we need to add the next step.
Right. Yeah. I just needed something with a little different languaging to support me more. That's all. Yeah. So
we're down to the last few seconds.
Okay.
And the action step now is to consciously, purposely to choose to bring in love, breathe, bring in your essence, love.
Okay.
And seeing, experiencing that essence that your mother is as love being stirred as well. And we'll join you in holding that space. It is an awesome gift to give the world.
Yeah, and it certainly gives rise to compassion.
Yeah. Well, it brings in our whole human essence, which is the active presence of love. It is compassion. It is the ability to be cognizant of someone else's pain and not be lost in it. So holding the space as you continue to work on that one, and it's just announced in my ear that we're complete, so it's going to cut us off. So I'm going to say thanks for the willingness. I think this has been a great session, and maybe we'll continue